Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Congressman Ben Cline. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me today.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Last month, you introduced the Veterans Entrepreneurship Act of 2023. Can you give us an overview of the legislation?
Sure, it would address a need where veterans who are returning from service who may not be great candidates for college, and college may not be their goal, to access their GI Bill benefits to start a small business. You know, about 10% of small business owners are veterans, and that should be even higher. If a veteran has a great idea and needs to be able to access their GI Bill benefits, they should be able to do that to start that business. It would start a pilot program that would be administered by the Small Business Administration. And hopefully at that point, we would see some success and could authorize it on a more broad scale.
I do want to take a step back here. What has been the inspiration behind this legislation?
Well, veterans are a big part of the 6th Congressional District. We're close to Washington, D.C. We have a lot of retirees in the Valley and a lot of veterans who just love the environment. It's a very outdoor friendly place, a lot of hiking, a lot of outdoor activities available. And so a lot of veterans have talked to me about utilizing their GI Bill benefits. It's one of the reasons that a lot of veterans go into the service because that is waiting for them when they get out. But by the time they get out, maybe they saw something while they were serving that sparked an idea in their brain, but they felt boxed in by the limitations on the GI Bill and wanted to use it to start a small business instead.
So, would this pilot program be an alternative to college?
Yes, it would be. You would have to undergo entrepreneur training administered by the Small Business Administration. It would be a short course, but it would be one that would give you kind of the basics in economics, in marketing, in business that would help you once you access the funds to go ahead and launch your business. You know, we're talking about $100,000, $125,000 in GI Bill benefits that have been accrued over time by these veterans. And so accessing those benefits are really going to help them to launch that business, whether it's here in the Shenandoah Valley or in a large city. The sky's the limit when it comes to helping those who stood by and stood up for us.
I do want to hear more details about the pilot program. What exactly would it entail?
So it would be a 3-year pilot program. The Small Business Administration is currently administered, well, it's under the Commerce Department's auspices, and it does provide a lot of business assistance for entrepreneurs. So it's something that they already do, but they would be tasked to launch up a veterans training program, and that program would be utilized as part of the pilot program. You wouldn't really be taking on more than a few dozen veterans to in this pilot program to access their GI Bill benefits to see if it's something that veterans respond to positively, if their businesses they could continue to receive that advice and that input from the Small Business Administration as they launch their business. So receiving that help and assistance as they get started, and hopefully it would be a success and provide some more options for veterans in addition to going to college.
Sure, I do want to talk more about the selection process here. How are you picking these veterans to participate in the program?
Well, because it's a pilot program, it would be fairly limited at first, and the Small Business Administration would be tasked with reviewing these applications for the program. You would have to have a pretty concrete idea already in place, ideas about financing, about the marketplace that you're getting into, competitiveness that already exists in the marketplace where you are, and the Small Business Administration would review those proposals to see which ones would probably be best suited for the grants that would be awarded as part of this new pilot program.
I know that you're saying this is a test, it's a pilot program, but let's talk hypotheticals. Let's say it goes swimmingly. Would this be just a one-time thing, or would this be every year, every 3 years? What does this look like in the future?
Well, the one thing that you can find bipartisan support for in Washington is support for our veterans. Giving back to those who have given so much to their country and to us as citizens. We all come together when it comes to supporting our veterans. And so if you see this really take off, I would anticipate that it would have bipartisan support from both the administration, which would be in charge of running the pilot program, and also the House, which is Republican run, on which I sit on the Appropriations Committee and the Budget Committee, and would be very anxious to work with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle who support the bill now to see that it's either a permanent authorization or a broadening out of the pilot program. And this is the kind of thing that I can see becoming a long-term option for veterans, and encourage more veterans to enlist, or more young people to enlist in armed services, because they know they've got those options when they get out of service.
I do want to talk about that bipartisan component that you did touch on. Last week, I spoke to your colleague, Representative Nikki Budzinski, and she's a Democrat, and I asked her, what policy areas can you see yourself working across the aisle on? She said veterans. When you introduced this bill, you introduced it with a fellow Republican and 2 Democrats. Why do you think when it comes to issues facing veterans, there is such bipartisan support?
Well, we all just admire so much the service of our veterans. There are more veterans now coming into Congress than there have been in the past few years. The World War II generation, we were losing our World War II veterans who were serving in Congress over the past several years, but now we have new veterans from the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan coming in, and they are contributing to that support for veterans issues in the Congress. Those of us who didn't serve are lifelong supporters of our veterans, and we want to make sure that the programs that are in place, whether it's healthcare, whether it's retirement, we recently just adopted the PACT Act, which deals with burn pits in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the ailments that developed from working around those burn pits, making sure that the treatment was available for those veterans. So that was a bipartisan initiative as well. So you really do see us coming together, and at a time of really excessive partisanship, in my view. A lot of us are really seeking out those areas where we can work together, because there are plenty of areas where we're going to disagree, but there are fewer and fewer issues where we do agree, and we need to really try and build those bridges, because a lot of the problems that exist in this country are only going to be solved through bipartisan efforts together.
Congressman, to your point, it is very refreshing to hear members of both parties coming together for issues especially facing veterans. In the next Congress, do you see yourself working together with Democrats on any other policy areas aside from veterans issues?
Absolutely. I've introduced several other pieces of legislation already, dealing with the regulatory state, the administration. When parts of the administration are coming up with regulations, we need to make sure that there's accountability there. So requiring that regulations be signed off on by individuals confirmed by the Senate instead of a lower level bureaucrat, that type of initiative, that type of effort has bipartisan support. The bill has support from Democrats as well. And so I'm going to keep seeking out those areas where I can find bipartisan support. I won't hesitate to stand on my principles as a conservative, but I also want to make sure that we can get things done in a bipartisan way. In divided government, that's the only way you're going to get things done, is by working together.
And getting back to the Veterans Entrepreneurship Act, I know that you have received bipartisan support, but what has the response been from the public and from veterans?
Well, it's been a great support from veterans groups across the country. They've all signed up and made it a priority. So our leadership is hearing from these groups across the country in support of the bill. They want to see movement on it. Hopefully we'll see action in the Small Business Committee, where the bill currently is, and the Veterans Affairs Committee and the Veterans Caucuses that also exist. We're reaching out to them as well because they are on all different committees, from appropriations to ways and means to armed services. And so getting their support is also going to help move the bill forward and get the support it needs to make it to the president's desk.
And Congressman, I know you did just introduce this legislation last month, but let's talk another hypothetical. Let's say it gets passed tomorrow. How quickly could we see this program implemented, and how fast would the pilot program be picked up?
Well, we would love to see it signed into law tomorrow, but if it is, we would anticipate the Small Business Administration would jump on it to start promulgating regulations for the pilot program immediately. And I would guess that the applications that could come in over the next 6 to 8 months could be approved to start off and have small businesses awarded with GI Bill benefits within a year.
Congressman Ben Cline, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.